Hello, sweet sisters. Wanted to jump on right quick while I was in between sessions. So I taught for a couple hours this morning, just had a media interview. Have a couple of things this evening speaking to a women's group, and we have our book club 8 o'clock tonight. I'll put the link below in case you all want to join us. But I thought you would be interested in the topic that I was talking about today. And the title was Manipulation of the Modern Woman, ? Something interesting came up. Hello, sweet sisters. Let me know who is on. Something interesting came up when I was doing my research after the book, and I wanted to share that with you because I made a discovery that is it possible that we as women have been manipulated for the past 100 years? Now, I know this sounds, Kim, this has to be far-fetched, but hear me out. So there's an interesting story. Back in 1929, it was a Sunday in April, Easter Sunday. There was a parade in New York City on Fifth Avenue. Hello, Carolyn. Parade on Fifth Avenue, and in that parade was a group of women. I've mentioned this before, and they were smoking cigarettes. Unheard of from that time of day. Scandalous. Women didn't smoke out in public, okay? A reporter found her after. Hello, Jennifer, sweet sister. So glad. Let me know how you all are doing today as we start the week. What was interesting is right after the parade, a reporter walked up to the woman and she mentioned how cigarettes were torches of freedom. Sounded like it fit right in with the day, right? 1929, women are fighting for the right to vote. Hello, Lisa. I'm so glad. I'm sending you good thoughts too, and pumpkins, look at you. And hello, Bonnie. Well, what's interesting is that comment to that reporter set off a firestorm of coverage. And for most people looking at it went, oh, well, that was interesting. Well, what happened is there was a gentleman named Edward Bernays, and he was the PR mastermind of capitalism at the time. He had been hired by the American Tobacco Company. Hello, Sonia. He had been hired by the tobacco company to increase sales. So right there at the beginning, late 1920s, women were already being a pawn in someone else's playbook. I found that story fascinating. Well, when you advance, let's go ahead and advance a couple years. That was before, many of our times. Let's go to the 1960s. What was interesting is there was a book that was published. It was called The Feminine Mystique. Do any of you remember this? It was published by Betty Friedan, and in 1964, over 1 million copies were sold. Isn't that fascinating? 1 million copies, and it literally started what they considered the feminist movement. Again, sounds interesting. Gloria Steinem then pops onto the scene just a few years later. She was starting to write about women's liberation. How many of you, when you think of the women's movement, often think of Gloria Steinem? I know that word, thinking of her often came up for me. Hello, Sonia. Hello, Cindy. And so what was intriguing about that when I was looking at that is I found an interesting nugget of information that I did not know. I did not know that Gloria Steinem had been a CIA operative in the 50s and 60s. Did you know that? So if you knew that, let me know. Put yes in the chat box there. Well, I began to think, is it possible that her involvement with the CIA influenced her in the feminist movement? I wouldn't have believed that or even considered that if I had not read Betty Friedan's updated foreword when she republished her book 2014, and in there was one small line, and she said yes, she was surprised by how things took flight, but she always had a very good intention. It was never meant to polarize men and women. She was surprised because it was like someone almost hijacked the movement. Now all of a sudden those things seem like interesting coincidences, don't they? Well, then let's fast forward to Roe versus Wade. Okay, this happened before many of us were either born. Some of you were. This happened maybe when some of us were young, so I would have been only 3 to 5 years old. For some of you, you were right there on the front lines. Okay, I have a wide range of women here. Well, when you fast forward to that, okay, this was a landmark decision, and it was being sold to the public as the power of choice. Freedom of choice is what it was called. Well, I actually used to be pro-choice. I was that for much of my life until I made a discovery. I made a discovery that Planned Parenthood was very active in that movement. And I found out that the founder of Planned Parenthood, Margaret Sanger, actually had a dark past with eugenics. She was a big believer in eugenics, weeding out the less desirable population. And so all of a sudden, when you look at that piece of information, see, I had never studied that before. You look at that piece of information, and you add in the fact that there was a public persona, a public campaign to say that this was freedom of choice. Well, do you know Edward Bernays was still around? He was around all the way up until the Bush administration. And so when I look at the torches of freedom and I look at the power of choice, the freedom of choice, okay, I'm beginning to think, things sound a little familiar. Maybe coming out of the same pages from the same playbook. Is that possible? And so for many women, wherever you are, pro-life, pro-choice, it never was being anti-life. I was always very frustrated by that. What it was is I grew up with this belief that we had choices and with women, and I really did genuinely believe that. But now that I'm zooming out and I'm seeing the bigger picture for all of these things, I'm really beginning to consider, hello, Basaki. I know this isn't relevant right now, the subject I'm talking about, but please hang on because I'm going to tie it in together in just a minute. When I look at all of these things, it's begun when I've mapped it out, because most of the time, how many of us were busy? How many of us even knew about Edward Bernays, okay, and the Torches of Freedom? I had not heard of that. We think back to the feminist movement. We make a decision about whether, was feminism good or bad? But then I think about Operation Mockingbird, which was taking off around those times, where the CIA was actually using the media and using public figures to influence public opinion. All of a sudden, you link these things together, and it makes you wonder, have we all been manipulated? Have women been manipulated? Have we been a pawn in someone else's playbook? And under the guise of freedom. So how do we decide? How do we decide? And that's what I want to offer you today. Hi, Diana. I want to offer you just a couple of tips, as I was talking about just recently with the media. 3 steps. Connect the dots, double check your assumptions, and then question everything. So connect the dots. Go back and look, sweet sisters, at the past 50 to 100 years and see what was happening around some of these landmark decisions, and ask yourself if it was possible that it was serving someone else's agenda. Very possible. And the thing is the gentleman was just asking me, he goes, well, Kim, don't most people try to manipulate things? Hello, Carla, sweet sister. Don't they, and hello, Diana, don't most people try to manipulate things? And I'm like, well, most of us go into this maybe willingly. If we know we're possibly being manipulated, like when we go to a magic show, we know we're being manipulated. We want to do it for entertainment, and we're a willing partner. But what if we didn't realize that we were being manipulated? So stopping to connect the dots is how we claim sovereignty over self. Tip 2 is to double check your assumptions. So many of our beliefs were actually given to us when we were young. Think about it. So I've mentioned to you all that, 10 years ago when I hit a very difficult time in my life, I had to reimagine everything that I was thinking. I took every belief system out of my head and I looked at it. And I said, is this belief mine or was it given to me? And the same thing comes up with what we've believed about women. We've actually been taught not to trust ourselves. Men have been taught actually to have a beat right in between. They respond to us to also possibly not believe what we say. How many times have we had victims come out and share their story, and people say, oh, well, something must be behind it. There is this undercurrent of not believing women. Why? Well, when you add these together, that begins to say, maybe there is something greater here. And so I want to encourage you to double check your assumptions. Did you know that about Planned Parenthood and Roe versus Wade? Did you know that about Edward Bernays? Did you know that about the feminist movement, about Gloria Steinem? So remember, I keep talking about the fact that if 1920 was about the right to vote, 2020 is about the right to have our voice heard. And then last tip for this day, okay, is question everything. Question everything. If we were possibly played in the past, okay, as a collective group of women, is it possible we're being played now? We hear about a vice president, a female vice president. Sounds like it's a great thing, right? It might be. Or is it possibly playing into some other larger agenda? We saw the things happening at both conventions, and I'm not even going to go into what happened with the debate, okay? Not even going to go there. But here's the thing, is I simply want you to be sure to question everything. What is there to gain for someone to do that? And the power you and I have, sweet sisters, is to stop repeating the old narrative. I was working with an executive when I was coaching her, and she was asking me to help her prepare her opening comments for a conference. It was a women's conference. And she was sharing all about the glass ceiling and the statistics about pay and all the things that we've heard. I could tell that she didn't have a lot of enthusiasm about this issue. And I said, Sarah, why are you sharing this? You're not very, enthusiastic about it. And she looked for a minute and she went, well, these are the kind of things that we talk about at these women's conferences. And I challenged her and I said, Sarah, what you have the opportunity to do is to write a new story. Stop giving power to these old narratives that we've been handed, sweet sisters. We've been handed all of these things. We can stop giving them power and instead write a new narrative, write a new story about the future. And that was such an aha moment for her that she changed the way she approached it. She painted the vision for the future and what she saw for women in the future, and that was an empowering vision. We can stop hanging on to these old things, these old ideas that we've been told. And so I share all of this with you today because I believe that we have great power. I believe that we actually are ready to step into that wisdom. How many of us have heard these kinds of things in the past, or something comes up and we say to ourselves, something's not quite right about that. Something in my gut is telling me. And anybody with me? Hello, I'm from Indonesia. I'm so glad to see you, sweet sisters. How many times have we as women have had a feeling about something only to find out it was true? But nobody believed us, right? Nobody believed us. And so that's about tapping in to that intuitive intelligence. So you know what? I will be brave. I talk about women being brave, so I will bravely step into what happened last night. In the U.S., there was a presidential debate. Now, it was disheartening for me personally. It was disheartening to bear witness to yet one more testosterone-driven pissing match. I've experienced many in my life, as I'm sure many of you have. What it did teach me, hello, I am so glad to see you too, sweet sisters. What it did teach me is that I believe the paradigm of the way presidential debates are set up right now, it's time to retire it. It's a relic from the past. I actually think, let me know if you agree, I actually think this country is ready for a citizen debate with the nominees. Why not engage us? No town hall where we simply ask one or two questions. Why not engage some of us to go into a debate with the nominees? Wouldn't it engage us? Wouldn't it inspire us? Could it possibly be that we would begin to take ownership of our citizenship and actually become much more informed about the ideas if we knew there's a possibility we might debate? And so I offer that. I mean, I even offered that for myself. I'll be the first one to test out that model. Perhaps we can breathe new life into 3 small yet powerful words. We the people. And a lot of people also have been asking me about RGB. So here's the thing, as I've been thinking about it. Bonnie, if you're curious, there's so many levels to be cognitive to do, too. You have to pay attention to what you know. You're absolutely right, Bonnie. Many times, we've been given that kind of insight. So I offer all of this with you because there's a lot going on at the moment, whether you're in the U.S. or whether you're in another country. The same concepts are universal. We have the power, okay? We have the power to frame an entirely new vision. What we saw last night, I believe, in the U.S. is a vision of the way things had been in the past with people simply going at each other. And sweet sisters, I actually believe that's part of what we're going to bring healing into the future. That is, we usher in the feminine side of the energy that's coming in. It's time for that. It's time. It's time. And so I do want to end with this, okay? I am in full agreement with the legacy quote of RGB that says, women belong in all places where decisions are made. Women belong in all places where decisions are made. I can buy into that perspective 100%. And I'm actually looking forward and encouraged by the fact that there's another nominee that's a woman who has the chance to carry along this same sentiment. Wherever we are in the world, sweet sisters, we have the power to have our voices heard. But first, it's important for us to figure out, have we been manipulated? Have I been manipulated? And am I really making the decision based on where I am and what I see? Or am I making a decision based on information or the lack of information that others gave me in the past? Think about this. So I've made a fundamental choice about the whole thing around the pro-choice issue. I believe that there's now been a habit over 100 years. I'm going to show you the timeline soon of where women have been manipulated. So as we are in each country, tune in to your intuitive intelligence. Ask yourself, is this really true, or am I still carrying a relic from the past? okay? We all have the freedom to change our mind in any moment. That's the beauty of being human. We learn each day. Are you all with me, sweet sisters? We learn each day. So, you know, there's an old saying about whether you're Republican or Democrat, you're young or older. This goes way beyond politics. So please step out of the chaos that we see. Even last night, I had to turn some of it off. Unplug from the chaos and tap into your intuitive intelligence, your knowing. Yes, Carla, I can see that. It can be scary. But in every moment, we have the choice to unplug from the chaos and instead, even if it's a vision in our head about the country we want to head. So that's what I saw last night. I saw last night that the old paradigm of presidential debates is a relic. It's time to bury it. Let's bury it like a bone and move on to a whole nother avenue. And that's where I believe many of you and I have the power to bring up those ideas. Know that your ideas are so vitally important. I cannot stress that enough. Your ideas are so vitally important. And we are stepping into a place where we can begin to claim our sovereignty over self. So, interesting subject. I offer that for you today. A lot going on these days. I want to just give you a shot of energy, a shot of love, of light. Invite anyone who wants to join us tonight as we continue the conversation around the book club, 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. I'll put the link below. If you were not able to join tonight, if you register, then know that you have access to all the videos. We do 20-20-20, 20 minutes about the book and a nugget you can take away because you don't have to be prepared for the book club. I do all the work for you. 20 minutes in the middle. We have a guest speaker tonight talking about some of the unwritten chess rules that are out there in the world that we were not aware of truly, and having a conversation around that, and then 20 minutes of healing and inspiration because that's my commitment to you, sweet sisters. There's a whole new world ahead. That world will happen when each one of us begin to tap into that world that's right inside of us, okay? Tap into your intuitive intelligence. And Bonnie, you're right. There's a new day dawning. Ida, we learn every day. What painting behind me? That is a peacock. There you go. Peacock feathers. I refer to them a lot in my training. So peacocks are very important to me and that symbolism with me. Carla, what scared me about the First and Second Amendment. Carla, talk a little bit more about that. Here's the thing I want to talk about, losing them. So here's one thing that I want to share with all of you as you're learning new things. What I've learned, so people got really into the law of attraction years ago, that when we think about something, we can manifest it. What I've learned over the years diving into that is I believe that, but we have to put emotion behind it. So when we give fear to something, when we give worry or concern to something, we actually become a partner in creating that reality. Okay, I want you to tune that in right now. So whenever I find myself, I used to spin in the middle of worry and concern and fear all the time. Literally, that was what I walked through. I mean, that's why my heart was always pounding, my stomach was aching. I saw the world through this very fearful lens. The beauty of what I've learned now is I don't walk through the world with fear. We've talked about that. So as we go through this, when we see something that says, okay, I don't want to lose these things, absolutely. So then ask yourself, what do you want to do to claim that that will not be true? Pause for a moment and you say, okay, all right, self, you want to talk yourself in the mirror. Okay, self, I hear that you are concerned about losing that. I'm going to talk to you right now and I'm declaring that I'm instead going to hold on to those things and know that it's all going to be okay. That I want us to experience the freedom in this country that we claim, or wherever it is that we are. But in that moment, don't give more power to what you don't want. Let me say that again. Don't give more power to what you don't want, okay? So don't give more power to what you don't want. See it and then shift and give power to what you do want. What you do want. And so I was nervous when I had the media interview. I was thinking, okay, if they ask me about the debate, what am I going to say? There's no winning, on and on. And then it struck me. Stop tap dancing in the old narrative, Kim. Stop tap dancing in the old narrative. You're right, there's no way to win in that narrative, but I can paint a new one. And that's where I was inspired by the idea of having a citizen-driven debate, where citizens had a chance to get up there and actually debate. I believe there are enough people in this country that would want to do that. The reason I share that example is because the old narrative will try to suck us in. And you're right, sometimes there's no winning. So write a new one. So write a new narrative. I want you to think about the beauty of that creativity. Write a new narrative. Well, what doesn't exist that I can suggest? What is something deep inside my heart? And if we pause for a moment and we ask our heart, that it actually came to me. It came to me in that intuitive intelligence. Wow, there's a whole new paradigm. Why don't I suggest that? And maybe it could take fire. You see where I'm going, sweet sisters? So whatever the issues are in your life, don't underestimate your ability to be a creator. So I know I covered a lot today. I got home very late last night, coming back from Cincinnati. I've been teaching all morning. I have 2 programs tonight, including the book club, and I hope to see some of you there. I'm wrapping you all in much love, much light. Walk through the world and ask yourself, who is manipulating me? And then claim, no more manipulations, no more. I am walking in sovereignty over self. Take that for the rest of the day. Sending love. Bye-bye. Write a new narrative. There you go, Bonnie. Write a new narrative. Take care, everyone.